Sup, time for another review, and today I'm going to tackle The Innkeepers. The Innkeepers is an unusual horror film. Now, I looked at some reviews and I could see that critics really liked this film, but audiences didn't really think much of it, didn't really like it. I knew this meant one thing, that the film was going to be quite intelligent and pretty low on scares, and yes, it is. But that definitely does not make this a bad film. In fact, it is my favourite horror film of probably the last 5 years maybe. I think it's better than The Woman in Black, which was the last horror film I reviewed, and it's the same sort of thing. It's a ghost story and it is done in a very old-fashioned way. This old-fashioned feel is mainly due to the fact that it doesn't rely on gore and it doesn't rely on jump scares. It uses lots of suspense, it builds it up, and sometimes nothing happens, but it's that suspense that is meant to scare you and create that feeling of excitement, and it works. It's done in a Hitchcockian style. This director seems to like this. His last film, House of the Devil, he did the exact same thing. Now, before I get really in depth on this film, I'd first off like to say that if you're a casual horror fan, and if you are just looking for scares, and more scares, then go off this review. This film is not for you. Although this film does have a handful of nicely handled scares, it's mainly a very character driven film. It's very intelligent and it's not the sort of horror film that you will see every day. So you don't like that sort of thing, click off, but I warn you now, you are missing out on probably one of the best horror films that you've seen in a while. The film is about the Yankee Peddler Inn, which is a hotel in America which is apparently really haunted. And the two main characters, Luke and Claire, are employees at the hotel, and they are determined to find out whether the hotel is haunted or not. The hotel has a very dark history. There's been a few suicides at the hotel. Luke claims to have seen the ghost of the bride who hung herself in the honeymoon suite, and Claire is very interested because she has never had any paranormal experiences, so she's intrigued by this and is really eager to find something in the hotel. So on its last 2 nights, the two of them go around doing loads of paranormal stuff, investigating, looking for any signs they can. The film is directed by T. West, and I've only ever seen one of his other films, and I wasn't impressed, if I'm honest. It was Cabin in the Woods 2, and I didn't like it at all. And if you've seen it, you can probably understand why I didn't like it. I don't think anyone really liked it. So I didn't have high hopes. But after seeing this, I am a massive fan of this director. Apparently he's made another film a lot like this called House of the Devil, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that as well. The two main actors, Sarah Paxton and Pat Healy, are the heart of this film. Without them, this film would not work. It is a very character-driven film. In other words, you may find this film boring. It focuses more on the characters than it does the horror element. But this does not matter. We get to know these two characters. They are very likeable, they are charming, and they both act superbly. So this is what makes the film such a big success. This doesn't mean though that there's no horror in the film. It's a horror film. It has enough to satisfy you, but it might not be what you're used to. This is why I could not recommend it to a casual horror moviegoer, because it's a different type of horror. It's very subtle, it's not in your face, it doesn't use gore, it doesn't use jump scares, it doesn't even have much of an atmosphere, to be honest. I think this is why audiences aren't going mad about this film. It's not the sort of horror film that you see every day. It's a beautiful horror film, and it's very rare that we see something like this. Most horror films do use suspense. Well, some use it well, some don't, but it always builds up to something, like a jump scare or something. This, a lot of the time, builds up to nothing, and it's that suspense that is meant to frighten you, and if you cannot understand that, then fair enough, but then you will not like this film. This is a very charming horror film. Now, I understand that the director is focusing more on these two characters and their relationship and their situation than he is the horror. He focuses a lot on realism. They go around looking for ghosts, trying to pick up ghostly sounds, and they don't always get a result. This is trying to make it more realistic. But you do get a lot of comedy in the film. These two characters are very genuine, and I get a feeling that the comedy in this wasn't in the script, and it's mainly due to their performance. If the idea of this film being more focused on its characters than its horror doesn't bore the crap out of you, then I recommend you see this film. Not many films like this are made. Honest to God, they're not. Most horrors nowadays are very cliche. This is very intelligent, and its use of scares is very good. Don't get me wrong, the film has some scares, and when the ghosts do appear, it's unusual because there is no soundtrack building up to it. This is what I mentioned earlier about no jump scares. When they appear, it's shocking because we don't know they're about to appear. There are only about 5 scenes with ghosts, but it doesn't matter because these scenes stay with you longer than any jump scare will. The soundtrack in this film is very subtle. It's just a little piano over the top of the film, and it sends chills up your spine. It really uses its soundtrack to great use. And again, this adds to the 80s feel of the film. This is what old horror films used to feel like, and this emphasises my point of why old horror films are better than new horror films. I can take a breath now. Alright, cool. I think that was the longest take I've ever done. I think it was like 1 minute 11. Right, time for a very quick spoiler section. So, if you have not seen the film, please switch off now. Honestly, come back. It's going to be quite interesting. So please, when you've seen the film, come back. Now, I don't know whether you all realise this, but there are 2 ways you can see this film. You can see this film through the eyes of a skeptic, and you can believe that she's not seen ghosts at all. She is such a lonely person, she is so obsessed with just wanting to see these ghosts that they're just all in the head. She imagines these ghosts, because bear in mind, really no one else in the film actually sees a ghost, if you want to look at it that way. Yeah, they might hear certain things, but she's the only one visually who sees a ghost. So you can believe that throughout it, she sees nothing. The director intended it so that you could go in as a skeptic and leave as a skeptic. Or if you believe in ghosts, you can believe that she is seeing them. Like the psychic woman. She said there were 3 ghosts. I believe she was the 3rd ghost. And she said, don't go down to the basement. I think that's not because there were ghosts down there, because she knew that that's where she was going to die. Now, the old man, very mysterious. I don't really know who he is. Maybe he was that husband of that bride who killed herself. I don't know. But, you know, very mysterious film. If you have any interpretations of it, please let me know. Because there's so many. It's so intelligent. Right, that's the end of my short spoiler section. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to tell you something, and if you haven't seen the film, it doesn't really spoil anything, but I'm going to mention something in the last shot. Now, the film is full of these subtle little imageries and sound effects. Sometimes Claire can hear people calling a name. I didn't notice this on my first viewing, but the one I want to talk to you about is the last shot of the film. I'm not going to spoil it, but in the last shot there is a window and some curtains. Look at the right curtain and you will see something impossible to see, really. You would not know this unless you've looked it up or watched the commentary. So I hope this has made you really want to see the film now, because that is why I've told you that little fact. So, that is it. Nothing else I would like to say, really, except watch this film. I haven't said one negative thing about it. Surely that makes you want to watch it. It's an intelligent horror film. We don't get these much, so please watch this film. I'm going to give this film 5 downs. And I've got to do the 5 downs face again, and I look retarded. But anyway, here we go. Yeah, 5 downs. Oh yeah. Anyway, subscribe. Hope you're enjoying them. More to come. See you next time.